3 o'clock on a Saturday night/Sunday morning. That must mean it's wrestling time here on FAN. Jody Mack with you. Rich Mancuso will join us, as will Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We'll get Dave's thoughts on the WCW and the WWF. One coming off a big pay-per-view show, one heading toward one. Lots of doings, lots of shakings in both of the two major federations.
George, why are you looking through the Joneses' garbage?
New York! 8 after 3 here on FAN. Jody Mack in our wrestling hour with Rich Mancuso. Hello, Rich.
Hi, Jody.
How are you?
Good, and you?
And on the telephone line with us as well is Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Hi, Dave.
How you doing, Jody?
I'm good, and yourself?
Real good, real good.
Good. Dave, let's kick it off talking WCW first here tonight. They're coming off their Halloween Havoc card. What do you think of the card overall?
Overall, I thought it was better than it looked on paper, but I would just say it was a so-so show.
Were you surprised when Paulie Dangerously came out? A lot had been made of his situation with the WWF. Some people are now speculating that it might have been a hoax all along, that there never was a problem, and they did this just to build interest in the Halloween Havoc show.
No. I mean, they had, he was suspended, and there were letters going back and forth and everything. But what happened was that, the reason he was suspended was somebody, Jerry Jarrett or Jerry Lawler or something said something, and they realized that, he was accused of something that he didn't do, and it was pretty obvious he didn't do it. So I think that those in WCW realized that there was no reason to suspend him and brought him back. Plus, I think they wanted a new manager all along anyway.
But David, he had a press conference in New York last Friday, and Paulie stated that he was given WCW 72 hours to make a decision. So apparently they must have made the deal the Saturday night prior to it or early Sunday morning of last week. But most people I spoke to this week were stunned to see him at Halloween Havoc.
Well, the negotiations to bring him back started before the press conference. I know that they started like the Wednesday before the pay-per-view, but the deal actually wasn't finalized. He flew down to Chattanooga, I believe, on Saturday, but I think that they were arguing over, exactly what he would do and everything. I don't think the deal was finalized until Sunday afternoon. So, it was one of those things. I mean, once he was down in Chattanooga, obviously he was going to do something, but I think that they're not exactly sure exactly what he's going to do, but I think he's going to be pushed as the top manager in the promotion. I think that's pretty clear.
He's going to take over the reins for Rick Rude along with Medusa Michelli. Do you think that's what Paul E. wanted to do, that he wanted to stick with the managing and stay out of the broadcast position?
No, Paul E. wanted to be a broadcaster, but the company wanted him to be a manager, and as it all worked out, the chance to manage Rick Rude, I think, was enough for him to come back. And he's going to be managing other people, too. I think that they're going to add, probably at least 2 or 3 other names to that list between now and the end of the year.
There are rumors that the Honky Tonk Man has been negotiating with WCW. Can you confirm that, or see what the status is of him coming in?
I don't know. I haven't heard that at all, so I really, can't confirm it or anything.
Do you think Paul Lee will do a better job as a manager? As you mentioned, he would have rather stuck with the broadcasting end of it. I think he did a nice job at the broadcast mic. Do you think he's better suited to be a manager or a broadcaster?
Well, I think for that company, he's more valuable to that company as a manager. They really didn't have a strong manager, and he has the potential to be, with Bobby Heenan kind of stepping aside and Jim Cornette doing other things. He really has the potential to be the best manager as far as like interviews and all that in the whole business. So I think that for what WCW needed, it was better. That's the better role for him.
Was there ever a time in this brief suspension where the WCW felt that, hey, we got to get him back or he's going to WWF?
I don't know. I don't know if they ever thought about that, but I think that at some point, if they didn't bring him back, I think that Vince McMahon knows what he's doing, and I think that he would have wound up there, yeah.
Which matches did or didn't you like on the Halloween Havoc card?
Well, I think Bobby Eaton and Terry Taylor was probably the best match on the show. Like Lex Luger and Ron Simmons and Dustin Rhodes and Steve Austin was a real impressive match. And Jimmy Garvin and Johnny B. Bad really surprised me. I didn't expect that to be nearly as good as it was. On the bad side, I just didn't care for the Chamber of Horrors and some of the other matches, which on paper looked like they would be bad. You know, they were short, but they were, you know, they didn't really have a chance.
Hey, Dave, I got to agree with you. That Chamber of Horrors match, I think, was a real horror in itself. In particular, that referee camera that they used, they have to take a lot of the mistakes out of that. They're going to use that again because I thought that was disgusting, especially they used that camera in the main event in the Simmons-Luger match, and you couldn't even see the pin at the end.
I think that that was a nice idea. But I hope they never do it again because the referee was turning his head so much, and it was like it was horrible. You couldn't see anything when they had that referee camera in there. It just made you mad that they were going to that shot.
Dave, what was the buy rate on the card? Have the numbers come out yet? Because I think they made a royal mistake in scheduling it on a Sunday night against the Eagles versus the Giants versus the Redskins. Fine, you don't know that the 7th game of the World Series is going to be played that night, but it was a possibility. For them to schedule it on that day, I think they did themselves a major injustice.
Well, I don't know what the buy rate is. I've heard two different versions, and there was big discrepancy. The WCW people are claiming that was a 1.2 buy rate, which if I was them, I would be thrilled to death. Other sources in the cable industry are telling me it's an 0.7, which is an outright disaster. And given what they were going up against, that 0.7 really didn't shock me that much because, you know, the 7th game of the World Series, they think that it drew like a 32 rating on television. You had, most of the country watching the football game and the baseball game, and it's just, you were really left with your real hardcore wrestling fans, and that's just not enough.
What came out of Halloween Havoc, Dave? I kind of think that you're really not left with anything except for the Rick Rude Sting confrontation down the line. But as far as Ron Simmons and Lex Luger, what were your impressions as far as down the line, what came out of this one?
Well, nothing came out of it as far as those two. Ron Simmons has a bad wrist, so he's going to be out for a long time, and Barry Windham is going to be out for a while. There was actually a lot of injuries. Actually, most of them took place before Havoc, and as far as Luger, he's going to be working now, wrestling with Rick Steiner, I think, at the next Clash. So that'll be his next big opponent, and that, they didn't really do anything on that show to set that match up, but that's the direction they're going in.
Dave, is it me, or are we seeing more injuries than ever before in wrestling? And if I'm right, and that's the case, do you think it has to do with the crackdown on steroids throughout the both of the two federations, and the fact that these guys some of them are having trouble coming off the juice?
I think it's the exact opposite. We are having more injuries, and I think it's because they're not cracking down on steroids. And what happens is the guys who are getting hurt in almost every case are the guys, with some exceptions. The injury to Barry Windham, which was a crushed wrist, that's not a steroid injury. A bone injury would not be a steroid injury, but a muscle tear, a tendon problem, those are classic steroid injuries, because what happens when you're taking steroids is that your muscle size overloads your tendon and ligaments, and it creates an imbalance, and something goes. And I think we've had a plethora of them, and I think it's because the companies are not cracking down on steroids. They're still, pretty well encouraging it.
Rick Rude's presence debuts in the WCW like that. Now, did you notice, Dave, Jody, I don't know if you caught the show, but Rick Rude came out and said a bad word, I think, for the television audience twice. Something that I wouldn't even mention. It was bad. Do you know the word I'm talking about, Dave? You heard?
Oh yeah, sure.
Now, what did you think of that?
Well, it's pay-per-view. I don't know. I've heard worse. I was more. I don't know. If there was anything that was in bad taste, I thought putting a pseudo electric chair in the ring and turning on an on button with Abdul the Butcher. I thought that was kind of in bad taste. And I do know that Request TV wrote WCW a letter, telling them that they didn't approve of some of the things that happened in the show, and hopefully, I understand that a lot of kids that were at the show, when they did the electric chair thing, were really it really had some negative effects. And I think that I don't know where you draw the line, but somewhere there's got to be a line drawn.
Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer is on the line with us tonight, as is Rich Mancuso, our hometown wrestling expert. MacMan with you on the Fan. We'll turn our attentions next to the WWF, see where they're headed. Got a couple of pay-per-view show coming up, and pretty much up for grabs title reign of Hulk Hogan. We'll see what Dave thinks about the ongoings in the WWF in just a couple. Let Axel and the boys take us in the break, and then we're back talking wrestling with you on FAN.
Hey, fans, don't wait for news at 6 and 11 to find out what's happening. Get your sports from the Fan as it happens all day, every day. Sports Radio 66, WFAN, New York.
If you're like me and you love the good life, excitement, and VIP treatment.
20 after 3 on the Fan. Jody Mack, joined by Rich Mancuso and Dave Meltzer, talking wrestling tonight. Dave, in the WWF, they've got 2 pay-per-view cards, and the Royal Rumble is set for almost everything except the main event. The injury to Sid Justice has thrown everything into a bit of a tizzy in the WWF. What do you see coming out of the Royal Rumble, and how will that affect the other pay-per-view card that they've got scheduled?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen on the second pay-per-view card, other than something's going to happen on the first one, which will, I guess, necessitate a second one. It's going to be interesting. It's the first time that they've had a Survivor Series where they've had they've pulled the star, Hulk Hogan, out of the 8-man tag and put him in an individual match, and I think that there's a reason for that. And the rest of the show, I guess they're going to have to put a replacement in there for Sid Justice and a replacement for Rick Steamboat. So they've got 2 spots to fill. I would assume Tito Santana will fill the spot for Steamboat.
Now, Dave, this whole situation now with Justice out, setting up Hogan Undertaker, of course, and then December 3rd, their other pay-per-view event. The Macho Man Randy Savage is going to be reinstated. We could see that happening. And we also, I got hold this week. I spoke to somebody who told me that the Ultimate Warrior may be pressed into action shortly again because of the injury to Justice. Now, if that be the case, how does this all set up?
I really don't know where they're headed, but I do think that it makes sense that the Ultimate Warrior would have a better bargaining position with Sid out for a while. Those two, boy, it's going to be hard. I don't know. I guess they were going to bring them back anyway, but the way they do their business, if the Ultimate Warrior, Sid, Justice, and Randy Savage are all around at the same time, and Hulk Hogan's around, there's going to be 2 of those guys that are not in the main event, and it's going to be real interesting to see which 2 they are, because all of them seem to be were positioned at one point recently all as headliners.
With the fact that Hogan's movie did not do well at the box office, does that signify the fact that he's going to stay involved and stay as champion?
It could. I don't know. I mean, he still has 1 or 2 movies that he's already contracted for, and he's not dead in Hollywood. He's just not being looked at as as strongly as being as strong a box office star. I think that there were some people, based on the No Holds Barred, who thought that Hogan's name would be enough to be a big box office success, and now I think, he's going to have some more chances, but, the jury's more out, I guess. He didn't do himself any favors.
Does Ric Flair go into WrestleMania with the championship? What do you think?
I don't know what they're doing, but if I was in charge, yeah, I think that the best drawing possible match that they would have would be Ric Flair's champion defending against Hulk Hogan, with Hulk Hogan saying that if he doesn't win the title, he retires. And I think that that's the match that would do more business than any other possible match they can have. Now, whether they're going to do that or whether they have a better idea, I don't know.
Now, to do that, do you think that Flair would take the title from Hogan? If they give it to the Undertaker, then you've either got to have a short-time good guy champion and or have a bad guy match between Flair and the Undertaker, and I don't really see that happening.
Well, I don't see Flair and Undertaker at all. I don't think there's any chance of that. I mean, I guess there's two scenarios that you could look at that are possibilities. I mean, one is that Hogan would lose it to Flair. The other is that Hogan would lose to Undertaker, who would lose to a good guy who Flair could beat, which is an awful lot of title changes in a short period of time to do.
Right.
So, but those seem to be, if Flair is going to go in as champ, which I think is still, less than a 50-50 chance, but those would be the two ways it could happen.
If that were to happen, the second of your two scenarios, who do you think they'd push into services and have to give him a real quick push to a championship as that other good guy?
Well, Sid's out of the question. So I would say, of all the ones they've got there, considering it would be Undertaker who would be the villain they would have to beat, Savage.
Savage, how about possibly Piper, because you've already got he and Flair in their little battles?
I would say no right now. I think there's reasons that I think everyone's kind of disappointed in the drawing power of Flair and Piper, and I think that that's one that they may not want to go with. Maybe as a super long shot Warrior, but he's been gone, and I think to throw him back in and make him champion right away, I don't see that happening. I think that if it goes that way, boy, it sure looks like Savage would be the best bet. I don't see it.
I agree. I think Savage, Dave. That would be the choice at this point. You saw the match last week in Los Angeles between Flair and Hogan, right?
Well, I saw the Oakland match. I didn't see the Los Angeles match.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw the second. I guess it would be the second one.
Right. Well, two things. How was the crowd and how was the match?
Well, the crowd in Oakland was just a few hundred shy of a sellout, and it was a good match. It wasn't, we've all seen Flair in much better matches, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was, pretty good match. In Los Angeles the next night, they had, about 12,400 paid, about 14,000 in the building. So it was a few thousand shy of a sellout. So it didn't go in there and do, the big, selling out a day in advance, all-time record business that some people thought maybe it would. At the same time, it's drawing a lot more fans than anything else in present-day wrestling is doing.
Were the matches themselves good? How did they decide them?
Well, the two in California both ended with Flair pinning Hogan by using a foreign object, and then they reversed it when they caught him with a foreign object, and Hogan won on disqualification. And, I heard they were both good matches.
Do you think the fans would rather see a Randy Savage-Jake Roberts confrontation or a Randy Savage-Ric Flair confrontation at this point?
At this point, I would say Jake Roberts, only because that's what's been built up on television. And the feud, the feud is so strong, because of what they did at the wedding thing, and also what'll air, I think, on television in the next week or two, where Jake pulls out the Cobra and it fights Randy Savage in the arm and everything. So right now, I would say, people want to see Randy Savage get his hands on Jake Roberts.
And the thing they're doing with Hogan, and just before Survivor Series, Hogan's reaching out to the Lord. He gets attacked, I believe, by the Undertaker and Jake.
Undertaker and Flair.
Undertaker and Flair, right.
Yeah.
And Hogan is going to reach out to the Lord, and I understand he's going to be doing that quite often. Is that another risky move by the WWF, similar to what they did with Sergeant Slaughter and the Persian Gulf thing?
Well, I got to see how it plays on television. I don't know. Hogan's in the position where he can do no wrong in a lot of ways. So I don't know that it would be, but I don't know. I don't know. People are funny about religion. Sometimes they take things the wrong way, but I mean, we'll have to see how it's actually done. I've heard how it's done, and from what I've heard, I could see some people taking it, not so nicely, but it's hard to really say.
Dave, overall, with the WWF doing okay and the WCW having a decent pay-per-view card, not a great one, but a decent one, how would you say the state of affairs of wrestling is on both fronts?
Well, WWF is they're strong in their own way, but I don't think that they're super strong. And I think that they're in a position now. In fact, I know they are in a position now that between now and the end of the year, they're experimenting on several things. And I think they're going to reevaluate a lot of things that they do as far as promoting house shows to determine, what they can do to most cost effectively to maximize profits, because they've been hit by the recession. It's no secret. They laid off some people, and there's a lot fewer wrestlers that are going on tour. Most of these shows are now 7-match shows. They, in the old days, they had 10-match shows. Sometimes they had 3 a night. Now that's really 2 crews. So, there's a lot of guys that aren't getting nearly as many dates. So I think that they're trying to do things, more cost efficiently. And WCW, they've been having, their problems, but, they've got one of the richest guys in the country bankrolling them. So, I don't know, maybe they can go on forever until someone says, hey, you better do something. And so far, I haven't heard anyone, put down the hammer, so to speak, on them.
And he's got some extra money coming in from the Braves being in the World Series.
Yeah.
Dave, always a pleasure. If you could, please give out quickly the address where the fans can write to for your newsletter.
Okay, thanks. It's Wrestling Observer Newsletter, Post Office Box 1228, Campbell, California, 95009, $6 for 4 issues.
Always a pleasure, Dave. Thanks much.
Okay, thanks, Jody. I'll talk to you soon, Rich.
Thanks, Dave. Keep it in the ring.
All right, bye-bye.
Sports Radio 66, The Fan, WFAN.
Good morning. I'm John Stashauer with the latest 66 WFAN Sports News. Richmond on Billy, the #1 sports voice in New York.
Thank you, Dave. 3 late scores, 2 NBA, 1... 3:36 here on FAN. Jody Mack with you. Rich Mancuso still on the lines with us. We've got your wrestling letters to get to, and also we'll be taking some wrestling phone calls at 718-937-6666. Special Friday night edition of the Wrestling Hour. Both of the next 2 weeks. Yours truly will have both of the next 2 Saturdays off. So wrestling fans, make a note of it. Rich will be with us Friday next week and Friday this week after.
That's the last of it, son.
Hey, Bob, what's going on?
21 minutes in front of 4 here on FAN. Jody Mack and Rich Mancuso answering your wrestling questions, those that we've gotten through the mail. Richie, let's get to the letters. We've got some good questions. Our pal Will Weehee wants to know, can you tell me something about Max Andrews, who is the so-called boss of the wrestling cartel in the GWF? Not too familiar with him.
Well, Max comes out of the independent ranks, and Joe Pedicino gave him a good shot, and there's big plans for him.
Okay. From our pal Mike from Middle Village, was Paulie Dangerously really suspended or part of the Rick Rude angle?
Well, he supposedly was suspended. We heard it from Dave just moments ago, and but the plan is to make him a full-time manager, and that's what he's going to be now.
Whatever happened to the Barbarian and Haku?
Well, they've been regulated to what they call C status in the WWF, and in fact, both of them will probably work in independence along with Coco Beware and a lot of other guys in the WWF, because there's just not enough work right now.
Okay, Alexandra Mann's question this week is, how would you start out if you wanted to be an announcer or something other than a wrestler in wrestling today?
Well, you have to write to the promoters. Your best shot is go after all the independents that are around the country, and try and go to one of the shows, introduce yourself, and do it that way.
Okay, here's a good question. The letter writer didn't put his name on it, but what are the future plans for El Gigante in the WCW?
Well, the future plans are, I guess, to keep him in 6-man tag action more than going on one-on-one, because basically, when he goes in on himself, his talents just don't show.
Okay, Andy Silverstein has a couple of good questions. If Jim Hurd's contract runs out in January of '92, do you think the chances of him receiving a new contract are good or bad?
I think it's pretty good, because if the people at TBS wanted him out, he would have been gone already. So they're not faulting him with any of the problems.
With the Rockers gone from the tag team scene in the WWF, does this possibly set the stage for a British Bulldog return?
No, the other British Bulldog has been contacted and does not want to return. And Rocker turn is very interesting. Shawn Michaels turns on Marty Jannetty. You'll see that on TV in the next few weeks. And I think that's a bad move for the WWF, because, Jody, they're your favorite team. And I think a lot of fans, that's one of the favorite tag teams. And I think it's a mistake what they're doing with them.
Well, supposedly they're not getting along outside of the ring.
That's true, too. They don't get along. Both of them have tremendous egos, and outside of the ring they clash against each other. So I guess that this does it.
And I don't think they're going to be able to cut it as single wrestlers. The strength is in their tag team abilities with each other. With Slick not managing anymore, will the Warlock wrestle without a manager, or will he be giving a new one?
No, he'll get Harvey Whippleman. Harvey Whippleman will be taking over Slick's duties.
Okay. Is there a chance of Rick Martel coming back to the WWF anytime soon?
He's supposed to come back sometime in December. But the latest word is that there really is no date for him to return.
Okay, Glenn Rossi has a question. If the Ultimate Warrior returns, will he feud with The Undertaker immediately again, and if not, who else?
Well, see, that's an interesting question. If he returns, and he returns by Survivor Series, he could be placed in one of the Survivor Series matches, or he could play a role in that December 3rd show. I kind of think that if they come to an agreement and they want him that bad, and I think they're going to need him at this point, that December 3rd, he'll be playing some type of role.
Big Al Kowalik from Linden has a pair of questions. Did Bruno Sammartino ever wrestle in any federation other than the WWF?
No, he, when he left the WWF, briefly he did some stuff with some independents, but that was very brief. And I think it was more of an announcing role than an appearances than wrestling. But his entire career, the thrust of his career, was with the WWF.
Where did John Tolos land after he left the WWF?
He's out of wrestling at the moment. He's not doing anything in wrestling.
Steve Cohen from Fairview, New Jersey, says he heard at recent TV tapings a week before the Survivor Series Macho Man won't be reinstated. If so, how do they get him back in to take Sid Justice's spot at the Survivor Series?
Well, he will be reinstated because Randy Savage gets bitten by Jake Snake, and so there'll be a demand for him to return. Now, if they don't reinstate him, he may also wrestle under a mask as Madness, because in fact, that's a match at Nassau Coliseum in December, Madness against Jake the Snake. So he may be under the mask.
The Pro Boys have a Medusa Michelli question. Why did they make her a heel when they already have Lady Blossom, Alexandra York, and Missy Hyatt as female heel?
I think Medusa fits this role quite well, and she is the domineering female in professional wrestling, and that's why this role would be perfect for her in the WCW.
You don't think she could play a fan favorite?
I think she could, but and eventually I'm sure she'll turn. She does have a nice contract, too, which is very rare for a female wrestler in a major federation, with the exception of Sherry Martel.
Huey the Hitman's got a couple questions for us. Who will the Matador feud with in the WWF?
Well, I thought it would be Conan, but now with Santana out of action, with Steamboat gone, Santana's going to be taking his place. So in the Survivor Series showdown, let's see, we had Steamboat was supposed to be on one side with Duggan, Neidhart, and Von Erich. So he may probably get in there against the Skinner or Billy Busick.
Okay, and where are they now? Danny Spivey, Ronnie Garvin, and the Samoan SWAT team.
SST has been wrestling in Puerto Rico, and they've been wrestling for the independents. Danny Spivey's in Japan, and what was the other one?
Ronnie Garvin.
And Ronnie Garvin has been in Puerto Rico.
Okay, Alex the Macho Man has this question. Now that Sid Justice has an injury that may or may not require surgery, has Savage substitute him for his matches against Jake Roberts and The Undertaker? I guess Savage isn't officially in yet, but it's as good as done.
Yeah, he's already been doing that, and again, it's been under the mask as Mr. Madness.
Okay, and last question: who has the best chance for the next Intercontinental Championship when Bret Hart loses? Well,
they're playing up a feud with the Mountie and Hart right now, and they're also looking to put in Billy Busick in there against Bret Hart eventually. So it could be either one of those. But I think Hart's going to have that title at least for a year.
I agree with you. I think he will hold it for a while. Rich Mancuso is here with us on FAN. We're going to the phones. You're going to question for us as it pertains to the world of wrestling. 718-937-6666 is where you need to get your dialing fingers busy.
If news...
Jody Mac on Sports Radio 66. The Fan, WFAN.
10 before 4 here on FAN. Jody Mac and Rich Mancuso answering your wrestling telephone calls. Let's talk to Rooney from Bayside. Rodney. Rodney, you're on FAN.
Yeah, hi, Jody. Hi, Rich. How you doing?
Okay, Rodney.
Okay, it appears that the WWF is kind of low on some tag team talent right now. Do you know if they have any plans to bring in new tag teams? And who do you think will dethrone the current champions, Legion of Doom?
Well, yeah, they are short, and they're breaking up the Rockers. They did try out this team that was here in New York, known as the Undertakers. Two big guys from the Bronx that work for Saboldi's group, the ICW there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they made it. And there are no plans to bring other tag teams in. As far as throwing who's going to... I think Legion of Doom, they'll be champions at least a year, maybe more.
Yeah, I really enjoy them. I think they're great. All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Rodney, thank you for the call. Matt from Yonkers is on FAN. Hi, Matty.
Hey, what's up? What does it say? Whatever happened to Dino Bravo, Power and Glory, and the Orient Express?
Orient Express are going to be officially turning good in the next week or so. And then they'll split up and not wrestle as a tag anymore. And Power and Glory have been deregulated. They are working like these C and B shows because there's just not enough work for them. In fact, Hercules has been wrestling a lot on the solo route at the arenas. And what was the other one, Matt?
Dino Bravo.
Dino Bravo was supposed to be coming back by December, but he suffered an injury. So that's stalling his return.
How come they won't let Florida take Steamboat's place in Survivor Series? To stop us in the other team, he could make a good guy.
I didn't catch that, Matty. What?
Like, how come they don't make Florida take Steamboat's place?
Florida?
Yeah.
Well, because they're working a thing with Slaughter now, as you can see. And look, after the Survivor Series, Slaughter will be coming out with Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and in the ring together. And you're supposed to get support Slaughter again. So what they're doing with Slaughter is going to try and turn him good again, and Colonel Mustafa and him will start going into a feud.
And how long before Kurt Hennig comes back?
Kurt Hennig will be out at least till early next year. They said 12 months before he'd return. He has a very bad back injury.
All right, thanks very much.
Thanks for the call. Let's move along. Eric from New Jersey, you're on FAN with Rich Mancuso.
Hi, Rich. Hi, Jody. How you doing?
Yes, Eric.
Hi, I was calling about Mr. Perfect. I guess it's pertaining to 3 questions.
Yeah.
I guess you just answered it about his status. He won't be back for 12 months. Is that correct?
At least. They're not even announcing anything on the air. They're not mentioning anything about it at all.
Okay, Rich, would you be able to tell me the theme that he came into? Is that something that you'll be able to purchase, or is that something that was specifically designed for him?
The what?
The theme that he came into, the song that he was...
Steamboat?
No, the Perfect came into.
No, I don't understand the question.
What was the song that he came into the ring, like his theme song?
Oh, I never paid attention to it. You know.
Okay, would there be an address I could be able to reach Mr. Perfect where I can possibly get a signed autograph or photograph?
Well, I guess you'd have to write to the WWF in Stamford, Connecticut. That's the best way to do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks for the call. Paul from Boston's next here on the Fan. Hi, Paul.
Hey, how you doing? My reception isn't good tonight. What was yours and Dave Meltzer's opinion on what's going to happen at the Survivor Series? Do you think Hogan's going to drop it there?
I think that's what Dave seems to think, and I kind of think that's what's going to happen due to due to the interference from Ric Flair.
And what about the December 3rd show? What are some of the matches on for that?
Well, some of the matches that they have, they're not going to announce the show, by the way, until the Survivor Series. And some of the matches you'll see will be Roddy Piper, and Ric Flair will take on Piper in one match, and Big Boss Man and Virgil against DiBiase and IRS. Bret Hart against Steve Kern, who's the Skinner, and Randy Savage, Jake Roberts is another match that you'll see. And that's only going to be an hour and 50-minute show at a $14.95 price on pay-per-view. And again, they will not mention this until the Survivor Series show.
And when Honky Tonk Man comes to WCW, is he going to be the Honky Tonk Man, or are they going to give him a new gimmick?
No, they'd have to give him a new gimmick. He cannot use that name. That's a WWF trademark. I imagine they'll call him the Honker or something like that.
But he uses that on Independence.
Yeah. Honky says that he's allowed to. But I am sure that if he goes to the WCW, and you can bet on this, that WWF will not permit that.
Then how come when Dusty Rhodes was here that he's the American Dream, but he went back, he was...
Well, I think the two situations are completely different between... Hello? Jody?
Rich, are you still there?
I'm there.
Okay, I think we lost Paul, but we'll see if we can get Eddie from Suffern on the line. Hi, Eddie, you're on FAN.
Rich, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Okay, Eddie.
Okay, I've noticed in wrestling magazines and also in stores that the WWF is still pushing Ultimate Warrior paraphernalia. Now, I think Vince McMahon, I think they were foolish letting him go because he was, all right, next to Hogan, probably the next biggest guy. He brought in money. And, is it definite he's coming back? And if he doesn't, where does he go from here?
Well, he's been home in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
Now, as far as definite coming back, they're negotiating with him again. He was in the offices last week. And the reason he's got to come back now, and this is the feeling, is because Justice suffered this injury. So they're desperate for the big name, a big star to come back and fill the void. I think he'll be back. I don't know if he'll be back for the Survivor Series, but I think he'll be back for the December 3rd show.
Really? Okay, another thing, the Masked Superstar. Somebody called in a couple weeks ago. The Masked Superstar is Axe from Demolition.
Right.
And he's out because he has a bad heart. He's working in the office.
He's working for Joe Pedicino.
Okay. Okay, Rich, thanks.
Okay.
All right, thanks for the call. Tom from upstate New York on FAN. Hi, Tom.